we're doing Yoni Mudra. So you just bend your middle, your ring, your pinky, and bring them together. The tips of your pointers come together and the tips of your thumb, and then just extend your arms and just leave your hands rested on your lap to help with calming the mind, to bringing you to your place of power. Hey everyone. So thank you so much for joining me today. I am going to just do one really quick, make sure that nobody's having any issues. And I apologize, but I'm realizing right now that the next time I do this, I'm going to have my assistant help me so that I don't have to be checking this myself. But I just want to make sure that there's no one stranded out there that has an issue that wants to participate. So far, so good. I got a couple. All right, a couple of people that want to join the Facebook group. Okay. All right, so we're going to get started. And I'm also going to attempt to do this in 45 minutes, as I know that you are all busy. It's a weekday. I'm sure that you've got a lot going on. And I appreciate you taking the time to share this time with me and to learn about this really important topic that I hope will serve you and support you in your life. So I'm going to do my best to wrap this up in about 40 minutes. So this is heal your body with your mind. And that sounds pretty esoteric, I think, just to start for many of us. If you are somebody who is suffering from any kind of a chronic physical body issue, so if you have anything from physical pain that continues to creep up to an autoimmune disease or autoimmune issue, a skin disorder, and that could be acne or eczema or psoriasis or really any physical issue, then this is information that I think could really, really help you and change your life. If you're somebody that suffers from chronic anxiety or depression, if you're somebody that finds yourself attracted to relationship patterns that demean you or put you down or are just dysfunctional or toxic, I also believe that this information could really help you and change your life. My name is Monica Yearwood. I'm an Ayurvedic practitioner. I've been in practice for 15 years. I used to see people for a wide variety of reasons, and I would create these customized program specifically for their issue that included herbs and diet and detoxification practices and protocols. But over the course of my practice and working directly with people, I started to notice that there were similar roots that joined all people together. It didn't really matter what the reason was that they were seeing me. And so then I've decided in the last couple years to focus on those specific issues. So that's anxiety, which a lot of us can relate to in our, excuse me. Can you guys hear me? Just want to make sure you can. Can you raise your hand and let me know if you can hear me? Okay, so for the participant that says that they can't hear me, I think that it's actually something on your side. Okay. So through the course of my practice over the last 15 years, I started to really notice that there were similar imbalances that were impacting people. And the first one was anxiety, and the second one was digestion. And so if you have a digestive issue, or if you have an autoimmune issue, a skin issue, or many other actual physical issues, quite often it actually is stemming from inadequate digestion. I created a separate training for that. And so I'm not going to get into that today, although it's also really fun to talk about. So those were the two things. So it's like how to heal and clear anxiety and digestive issues. And there's a physical component to doing that. So using specific herbs and using fasting methods and doing things in a very physical way to heal the physical body. But then there's the emotional component. And that's really what I wanted to focus the training in on today, is what that means. So a lot of the material that I've made available to the public that I've created through my YouTube videos or my newsletters and everything over so long has really been about the physical stuff, like herbs you could use, fasting methods you could do, detox protocols to address the liver dysfunction, gallbladder, etc. But I haven't really talked about the emotional and mental component. And it's been encouraged by my clients, have really been encouraging me to get this information out there. But it's actually been a little bit difficult for me to totally articulate what's been actually happening. And so it's only been in the last also couple of years that I think I've really been able to figure out how to articulate this and make it useful for you and make it applicable to you. So I'm really excited to share this with you. This is the first time I've given this talk, so you may notice that I take some breaks, and it's just because I want to be really connected to myself and what I'm saying, and I want it to be clear. So by the end of the talk, you should have, 5 distinct methods that you can start using right away that will help you to connect with your physical body and to also develop some awareness around if you specifically have an issue that's really connected to your emotions and how you process stress, or how you tend to operate in relationships that are really close to you. Whenever I see clients at the beginning, we do some work to assess where they are on that range, because for some people, it's really, really obviously something more physical has happened. Maybe they were 16 years old and they went on a round of tons of antibiotics to help to fix their skin. And they just really damaged their gut. So it's definitely more on the scale of being something more physical. But still there's always an emotional component, always, where somebody else, maybe they lost a sibling or they lost a parent when they were a teenager. And after that, they suffered from chronic back pain, and they've been in physical therapy for years. So with that, we can see that there's more of a distinct correlation between emotional and psychological trauma that needs to be addressed and healed. So therein, we exist on a range. So part of this talk is to help to provide you with tools so that you can learn how to start assessing yourself and see if you can locate any of those roots between emotional or psychological experiences you've had and how they may be contributing to the physical imbalance that you may have. So if you haven't by now gotten a piece of paper, you may want to take some notes, because I'm going to be just guiding you through some quizzes and some self-assessment practices too. So you may want to grab a piece of paper and just jot some notes down. I'm also going to give you some resources, some books, authors you can look up, scientists you can look up if you want to. So you can write that down now instead of sending me emails later and asking. Okay. So that takes us to the first step and the first method, which is self-observation. So a lot of us growing up in the society that we grow up into, our schooling systems and everything else, are very conditioned to look outside of ourselves for the answers that we're looking for, especially if we get sick. You know, it's like one of the first things that we do is we go and we see a doctor, and we're expecting that doctor to tell us what is wrong with us in, 10 or 15 minutes before he or she ushers us up out the door with a prescription. There's a lot of conditioning that happens that, we're looking outside. So the first thing that you want to do is start practicing turning your attention around and looking within yourself. And this can help you with understanding any current imbalance, but it can also help you immensely if an imbalance starts to manifest. If you know your own physical body really well, you're going to be the first to know if your heartbeat starts to change, even if it's subtle. You're going to be the first to know if you develop something on your skin, in its most early stage, when it could be maybe corrected relatively easily. So the first step is to learn, again, how to observe yourself. So you want to observe the physical things. So we're going to go over those right now. And I'm going to tell you some key things to look for that would indicate that there's an imbalance that's happening. The first thing is actually your tongue. So your tongue should just be, pink and smooth and supple. That would be a healthy tongue. If you are waking up in the morning, or if you notice throughout the day that you have a very thick white coating on your tongue, that can indicate that there's toxicity in your digestion and sluggishness in your digestion. If you have a red and swollen tongue, and this is actually confirmed by modern day science, not necessarily the tongue, the toxicity in the colon, the white coating on the tongue, but red swollen tongue can indicate different vitamin deficiencies or mineral deficiencies in your body. That is confirmed by modern day science, if that makes you feel better. Imprints, so having a teeth imprint along the perimeter of your tongue can indicate swollen thyroid, can indicate a thyroid disorder. In Ayurvedic medicine, we would also say that it could indicate inflammation in your body. So looking at your tongue every day, something that you can do physically to make sure that your body is healthy. And if you notice a change in your tongue, then you can perhaps investigate that to see if there's something that's wrong. The whites of your eyes should be clear. They should be white. So if you have chronic bloodshot eyes, that can indicate liver toxicity. It can also indicate that you're not getting enough sleep, or that you're looking at electronics too much, or that there's allergies. But the whites of your eyes should be clear and white. Your skin should be hydrated. It should be healthy and smooth and clear of blemishes, clear of acne, clear of psoriasis or eczema. Your hair also, if your hair is chronically dry or breaking, that can indicate that you're not assimilating fats well in your diet. And then also taking your pulse. So that's something actually we do in Ayurvedic medicine. Like if you went and you saw a practitioner, Chinese medicine uses the pulse also, takes your pulse, and there's different qualities and things that we listen to. But you can take your own pulse. And I do recommend that you do that every day after you wake up in the morning, before you start getting involved in your activity. Just take your 3 fingers and rest it on your radial pulse and learn your pulse. So in Ayurveda and yoga, it's your nod, it's your overall, it's your rhythm. It's your rhythm. And again, you don't have to learn how to assess it from a Chinese or Ayurvedic perspective. But if you listen to your pulse every single day, you're going to notice if your pulse changes or if there's something abnormal that happens with your pulse. So it's a preventative. It also can be really calming. In some lineages in Ayurveda, you take your pulse before you eat your meals, just as a way to help with settling your physiology and help with settling your mind. So that's a really physical way to observe yourself. But I also want to just push it a little bit further and just talk about what is awareness. What is awareness and what exactly are we observing? So I just would like to ask you right now a question, which is, where are you? Where are you? And I mean, not like in your physical space, like maybe like right now I'm in my kitchen or you're in your living room, but where are you? So a lot of people in Western cultures, they feel, and they'll answer that by this, they point to their head and they're like, I'm here. I feel like I'm here. So I'm asking you right now, where do you feel like you are? Do you feel like you're in your head? A lot of times people who are from Eastern traditions point to their heart and they're like, I feel like I'm here. Which is kind of interesting. So where are you? Where are you located? So a lot of us identify our location with our head, with our brain. But a lot of really interesting research has been coming out as of late in the last, 10, 15 years that says something totally different, says something completely otherwise, and says that, our awareness, our consciousness, our ability to think and comprehend information is not just located in our brain, but that we are actually aware throughout every single cell in our body. And so you may have heard of the second brain being in the gut. That's something that came out in the last, 10 years or so. That, there are these actual physical structures that connect the brain through the vagus nerve, which comes out of the cerebellum and innervates the digestive system, and the enteric nervous system that connects the brain and the gut together. That the gut actually comprehends information before the brain and then tells the brain what's going on. Because we used to think of the brain and the mind as being sort of this like, the tower of the body, that it processed all of the information, the command center. But what we're starting to understand is that different organ systems in the body, and that includes even the skin, which the skin is the largest organ in the body, receives information from what is happening in our physical environment and then tells the brain what's happening. So there's a neuroscientist by the name of Candace Pert, and I would highly recommend, if you're interested in this topic, looking her up, because she sort of proved that that this awareness, our awareness is not just located in our brain. Our brain isn't as much of this, command center that we once thought it was, that we are interpreting things that are happening in our environment and interpreting even emotional things through all of the organ systems in our body, and that we're telling the brain, what's happening. She was the one that sort of proved that. And she also proved that we store emotions in our fat cells. So we actually store our emotional experiences in the physical body. So when people do things, specifically in the fat cells, and so when people do things like go on a detox program or go on a weight loss program, and your fat cells are shrinking, you actually not only are detoxing in a physical way, but you're detoxing your emotional experiences. So that just kind of sheds an interesting light on why many times when people are overweight, there's a lot of resistance around losing weight. It can be an emotional experience, and why often losing weight can be very emotional for many people. So when I ask you, where is your awareness? Just knowing and understanding that it's not just in your mind, but that your whole body, every cell in your physical body is interacting and interpreting and having an experience with what is happening in your day-to-day life is really interesting. So we have the second brain in the gut, but then we have some really interesting research that has come out about the heart-brain connection, which is really interesting. There is the Institute of Heart Math, which is in Colorado, that is run by cardiologists that are producing a lot of really interesting studies about the heartbeat being an important information center in the body, that our heart experiences anxiety and fear before the brain does. So it changes its rhythm. So it's like the first thing. It's not like we see something scary and then it makes us feel something and then our heart starts to beat erratically. But the heart is the first thing to happen. And the heart tells the mind that something different has occurred in the environment. A lot of interesting research also about how our heart actually syncs up, our heartbeat syncs up with the people that we spend time with, which is very, very interesting. And also the work by Dr. Dean Ornish, which came out, 15, I think maybe 20 years ago. I think it might have been like 20, 25 years ago. He has written and done a lot of research about the emotional tendencies of people that have heart disease and have heart issues, that they tend to, suffer higher incidences of depression, anger, not be able to communicate anger in a way that is healthy or leads to resolution. But that people that have heart disease tend to keep it inside, keep it directed inward or act out with a lot of anger and rage instead of understanding how to communicate their feelings well. So he has an entire heart healing center for people that have had massive heart attacks or have different cardiovascular issues. And when you enter into his program, you're not only following a specific healthy diet, but you're in therapy to help with addressing negative emotions. And then now, most recently, there's the second brain of the skin. Actually, a lot of this research tends to come out by neuroscientists, which is really interesting because they're studying the neurology of the body, and then they start to see that there's this emotional relationship with things. So it's interesting, but the skin-brain connection is showing that people who have different emotional traumas or psychological tendencies tend to develop things like even acne, chronic acne, rosacea, and eczema. So the first method is observing the self and just starting to expand your understanding of where your awareness is, that your awareness is not just in your brain, but that you are aware everywhere within every single cell of your body. So then the second method is to take pause and to connect. This is just such a huge one, and I feel like it's almost everything. But then I go to the next one, and I feel like that one's everything too. So like a lot of us are dreaming through life. We think what we think is real. We are trapped into the way that we're identifying things and our relationship patterns, and we don't realize totally that we are creators in a big respect of that word. We are on autopilot. So to arouse and to awaken, your ability to be a more effective creator in your life, the first thing that you have to do is you have to stop and you have to take pause and you have to connect with yourself. I'm a yoga instructor. I'm an Ayurvedic practitioner. I'm very fond of the Eastern studies. So of course I use things like yoga and meditation as my way of encouraging people to connect in with themselves, which there's tons of amazing, interesting research about the benefits of meditating and just sitting in silence, how that actually impacts the brain just by being in a quiet space is absolutely fascinating. But if you are always, reacting to the things that are happening in your life, like you have no control, you have no say so, it will be difficult for you to be your own healer, and for you to be a creator, and for you to be the causative effect and influencer in your life. So I encourage you to find some kind of a system or a tool to develop your self-connectivity so that you are checking in with yourself. Okay, so the first one is to observe yourself. The second method is to take pause and to connect. I really like meditation practices myself. Then the third one is a big one. It's a big and ambitious one. But it's to clear and resolve all relationship traumas in your life. To find peace with the things that have happened to you in your life. And I mean, I work with a lot of different people who have gone, and I could cry about it, really, who have gone through horrific things that people should not go through in their lives. I don't think so. But, even if you have, to get better and to become whole and to become well and give yourself the absolute best chance of having a really good relationship with other people and to have a good life, you have to determine to heal, from whatever it is that you've gone through. And so part of that is to clear your relationship traumas. And, a lot of times people will say forgive, and I contemplated that word for a few years. What does that mean to forgive somebody that has really, really harmed or hurt you? But I found that in my own work with working with people, I think it's to make peace. And it's to make peace with what has happened in a way that enables you to move on and enables you to move forward. So how do you do that? So the first thing that you have to do is you have to create new meaning out of what has happened. And actually, this is confirmed by something that's called psychological resiliency, which is considered to be a trait of that they used to think that people were just born with, but now we've come to understand that you don't have to be born. You don't have to be born with resiliency. You can actually cultivate it. And one of the first ways that you cultivate it is by creating a different type of meaning out of what has happened. So I'll give you an example. A lot of times when people first come to work with me, they come to work with me and they are in tears. They are upset about what has happened and going on. And I honestly believe this. It's not like I'm like creating a fantasy, and you have to honestly believe what it is. It's not about creating a fantasy for yourself. But I believe that, the hurts and everything, this is the starting point. This is the initiation for you. And depending on what it is, you may not be glad that what had happened or what has happened, but you may come to appreciate it in a different way as something that has woken you up. People that are resilient, so we have all heard of something called post-traumatic stress disorder. So you hear of people that have gone through wars and they have something that's called post-traumatic stress disorder. This is less talked about, and I don't understand why, because about 25% of people that go through something like a war have this, but it's called post-traumatic growth. So where you actually grow as a result of the trauma that you have experienced. So part of that is finding a meaning in what has happened that empowers you rather than disempowers you. So I was reading a story about a man who went through war, and he says that the way that he describes it is that it has done so much good for me because I have this deep appreciation for life. I feel like it has made me a better father, and I feel like it has made me a better friend because I went through these horrors. I went through this loss. So that's a characteristic of psychological resiliency. We can't blame people. I mean, for feeling, damaged by the things that they've gone through in their life. That's not what this is about. It's just about having the awareness that, wow, even the most traumatic incident that a person could possibly suffer from, that they could come out the other side being stronger, being better, and being more loving because of it. And so part of that is how you have decided to interpret what has happened. So I use emotional release practices. And so, basically I create ceremonies with the people that I work with, where we are intentionally deciding to recreate the meaning out of something that has happened to them. I have a client who, and she's given me permission to speak about this. I'm not going to say her name, but her mother basically threatened suicide her entire childhood, and then she did it. So as you can imagine, the impact that would have on somebody underneath the age of 10 years old, and how that could potentially affect them. You could say that, yeah, the mother had a mental disease. You can understand that conceptually, but the child in her and how it impacted her as a child is a different story. So we created a ceremony where she actually spoke to her mother. She told her mother how she felt. She told her mother how it impacted her. She cried, and we forgave the mother. So we did this in a very ceremonial and intentional way, so that by the end of the practice, she found a different meaning. She was able to see how it affected her in her life, how it made her such an amazing mother, how it made her such an amazing person. Not that she's glad that happened, not that we're glad that happened, but finding the lesson in what happened, altering the meaning of what happened in a way that you can find to move on is what it is that we're trying to look for. Another thing that I do is something that's called Tarpana. And this is an ancient healing practice where you work with your ancestral lineage. And it's really interesting because this has been widely understood and known in yogic and Ayurveda that we pass our karma, we pass our tendencies, for better or worse, to our children and to our offspring. And this is something that's been proved, through something that's called epigenetics. Which is something that's come out recently in science, which basically says, it proves that we used to think our DNA was fixed, that we would inherit it and be birthed with it, and it would stay the same throughout the course of our life. But now we know that is not true. Our environment affects the way that the cell and the DNA expresses itself in the cell. And the way that this came to our awareness was actually because of studying people that had survived the Holocaust, their descendants. So descendants of the Holocaust tend to suffer from higher amounts of depression and anxiety. And it's because of the trauma that their ancestors went through and how it impacted the development of their DNA and how then they passed it on. So you can use, different practices to help with, in our system, help with healing yourself, but also help with healing your next of kin. So your children and your offspring. Okay, so we talked about the first one is self-observation and understanding that you are an aware being in every single cell of yourself. The second one is pausing and connecting. The third one is clearing all relationship traumas and emotionally releasing the traumas of the past. The fourth one is is understanding that you are a creator. So, it kind of ties back into everything that we've talked about up until this point. But that yes, we are creating a lot of the experiences that we have. And I think that this is important information for everyone, especially if you have a physical issue. Like, I just worked with a client who constantly kept re-spraining her ankle, constantly. Her ankle kept rolling. And it's like, well, on the one side, you could say that she had a very big sprain initially. And so then it made the ankle joint weak, and it made her more susceptible to constantly re-spraining it. But the interesting thing about it is that when we sat down and we talked about it more, it was actually, she started to believe that it was a lesson, that she'd been kind of sloppy, in many different, areas of her life. And it was a message for her to actually watch where she was stepping, to slow down and to be more mindful. So that's one. Another one is that I worked with a client that had a chronic itch that was impacting her. And through talking and through some work, it impacted her for like 10 years. And she had seen a wide variety of dermatologists to help with rectifying the chronic itch. And once we had uncovered that there was a relationship between the itch and some feelings and emotions that she had about her father, the itch literally went away after 10 years of a chronic issue. So I realize and I understand that some of this may be esoteric sounding, but in my practice over the last 15 years, I would say that 85% of the clients that I work with, there's a strong emotional components to what is happening. And so understanding that whatever is happening in your physical body, that you are potentially contributing to the creation of it. Back to the neuroscientist Candace Pert, in her research, she said she was astounded by not just, one or two people, but literally, hundreds of people that would come up to her in her book tours and show her, pictures and scans from their doctors with tumors that were spread all throughout their body. And once they started to realize that, or they suspected that there was an emotional contribution to their cancers, they decided not to go through traditional routes of getting chemotherapy. And I'm not suggesting that that's what you need to do. But they decided to work on these emotional traumas or things that happened in their life. Their cancer went away without medical treatments. And they've had, before, and they've had after pictures. And so it's great to have validation from people that are neuroscientists and medical researchers, and to be able to see these things in a very clinical and laboratory way. For me, it's nice because it's something that I also have observed and directly working with my clients for over the last 15 years. So understanding that you are a creator is really important, and being able to heal physical imbalances in the body. So how do you do that? One of the things that you have to do is you have to ask yourself, like, if you have a physical imbalance, when did it start? When did this start? When did this digestive issue start? When did this chronic pain start? When did this autoimmune issue start? What was happening in my life, at that time? Okay. I was underneath, I would say probably 8 out of 10 people that I talk to that wind up seeing me, something was happening in their life. It wasn't all, a bed of roses. They were going through some kind of significant stressful incident at the time that the imbalance started to manifest. So looking at that for yourself is important. And then asking yourself if, you've done the necessary healing work to resolve whatever has happened. Has it ended? Sometimes a chronic stress, it begins at that point, and then very soon after, the person develops a physical imbalance, but they're still underneath the wave of whatever chronic stress incident that started. So resolving it. And resolving it is even an interesting, thing to say, because resolving may not necessarily mean getting it out of your life. Because if that's what it is, you may be putting yourself in a position to always remain sick, because sometimes you can't get it out of your life. Sometimes there's an ex-husband or an ex-wife, or there's a family member, or there's a child, or there's a job, or whatever it is that you can't get it out of your life. But what you can do is work with yourself. You can work with how you are perceiving it. You can work with how you're finding meaning and whatever it is that's happening. And you can switch it so that you're not constantly re-victimizing yourself over and over and over again. The other part with maintaining the understanding that you are a creator is using tools, so using tools. I mean, again, I'm an Ayurvedic practitioner, and I'm a yoga teacher, and I'm a meditation teacher, and I teach people how to do detox strategies. So my tools are going to be things like meditation and yoga, and following different detox practices at specific times of the year, and even using stones and using essential oils and using different rituals. Those are going to be my tools that make me feel empowered, so that I understand that, and I can move through this life in a way where I am creating my experiences to the best of my ability, and things are not happening to me. And I have a very good awareness of the function of my physical body and how to help myself heal and to restore my health if I get sick. And I would also just like to touch on, with the law of attraction, that's something that we hear about a lot. Just that we're so powerful in our ability to create, that we are, attract certain relationships in our life. I believe this is so true. If a person, and I've seen it just over and over and over again, if a person, for example, feels guilt, I've noticed, and a guilt inside, and they believe that they have to be punished on some level, that this may not be conscious, they may be attracted to a relationship that's going to constantly demean them and put them down, because they have this guilt inside that's not been remedied. So we're attracted to certain people and to certain situations. If you believe that you are poor, and you just have that self-concept, and you just believe that about yourself, and it's deep, then you may be constantly attracted to situations where you don't get paid, or you don't get paid enough, or maybe you have a tendency to give your services out for free. So you have to work with that belief inside of yourself that makes you understand that you're wealthy and that you're abundant. And the more that you believe that, like really, the more that you're going to be attracted to the situations and people that validate that. If you get stuck in your physical pain so much and believing that you are sick, in believing that you're overweight, in believing, whatever it is, it's going to be more difficult for you to get well. So again, working with that self-understanding that you are a creator is really important. So we've talked a lot. Again, just to overview the 4 shifts that we've talked about up until this point: observing, expanding that sense of your own awareness will help you to understand that it's not just your brain that's taking in information, but that you're pulling in information throughout every single cell in your body, and using specific methods like looking at your tongue, your hair, your nails, your skin, etc., to help with, being able to identify if anything is going amiss or if you're manifesting imbalance. The second one is taking pause and connecting, doing some kind of a daily meditation practice or whatever your rituals are, so that you foster a connection with yourself. If you don't have that root, it's going to be difficult to do anything else that we talked about in this presentation. The third is clearing all relationship traumas. And so the way that can be done is by finding a new meaning in whatever it is that's happened to you that empowers you and that gives you peace and the ability to actually move on from whatever it is that's happened, and provide you with, a lesson and empower you so that you can do that. And so we use emotional release practices as ways to find that peaceful new meaning, and also Tarpana, which is a type of ancestral healing. And then the fourth is understanding that you're a creator, that so that you can stop re-victimizing yourself. And the other thing I will say about that too is to look at, like, if there's anything in your life that is contributing to your neurosis, you know, that is contributing to you constantly re-victimizing yourself and holding on to an old belief system that is not actually empowering you to move forward. And I will say specifically, with all respect, to talk therapy, I think specific talk therapists and psychologists, not across the board. I'm not saying it's not helpful. But if you find yourself in a situation where you're in talk therapy for 10, 15 years, talking about the same thing that happened, and you're still sort of trapped in it, that could be something that's contributing to you holding on to the old belief system that really needs to be shaken up and changed, so that it empowers you to move forward and helps you to know that you are a creator. There's a famous Buddhist sutra called the Heart Sutra. And, you know, basically the Heart Sutra says that everything is empty. And everything is empty. We think of empty, we think of like a glass empty of water. But in this context, it means like everything is empty of meaning, but the meaning we ascribe it. So basically, nothing means anything, but what we determined to say, the story that we give it. Even if I asked you to tell me the story of your childhood, if I asked you it today, this morning, you're going to tell me one thing. But if I ask you in a month, you're going to tell me another thing. So how you interpret what has happened in your childhood could change day by day. You're creating it, and you're creating it by whatever it is happening right now. So that's really important when healing the physical body, all physical imbalances, but also the emotional self. The last shift is to find a mentor or to find a teacher. And it's really hard to do this work totally on your own. I hope that I provided you with a lot of information that, you know, you could start applying straight away and opened you to things. But if you are, you know, suffering from an anxiety issue, if you are suffering from chronic depression, digestive issue, autoimmunity, skin disorder, you're going to have to know how to, heal the emotional stuff, which is huge, but also be addressing the physical body to restore your digestion, you know, using herbs that are best for your body, fasting methods, etc. So I've been doing this for 15 years, and I do this every single day. This is what I do for my life. This is my life's work. So the chances are high that I probably have seen something very similar, if not, you know, very similar to what it is that you're going through. And I can help to guide you through it and help to keep you accountable and create and hold space for you to do the deeper emotional processing and emotional release work that you may need to do. I have mentors myself. I have teachers myself. And when I have invested in my development, my results happen in a much shorter time span than me trying to figure it out on my own. And I'm also an entrepreneur, and I'm also a business owner. So there have been many things that I've tried to do on my own, and I can see, wow, that took me like 4 years to figure out. But when I got a teacher, I learned how to do it in a couple months. It's very easy for me to see that over the hindsight. And I've also done a lot of my own work in working with therapists and working with spiritual teachers. And I can see, wow, that took me this long, 5 years to figure out on my own. But when I went to her workshop, or I went to that person's class, or I got that person as my teacher, my learning curve was squashed down, and I was able to just do it and just move on. So I do offer free consultations. I offer free consultations to people that are suffering from anxiety and digestive issues, and who are ready and want to get better. And so in the free consultation, what I do is I promise you that I will help you that I will provide clarity on what the actual issue is. That's my promise. So we spend about 50 minutes together, and my promise is to gain clarity and to assess what the issue is. That's what you get from the call. And then if I think that I can help you, I will tell you how I think I can help you. If I think that you're a better fit for someone else, which happens, and I have no problem with that because it needs to be, you know, a mutual fit, then I refer you to somebody else that I believe would be a better service and that would help you to obtain your desired goal. So this is a free call, but again, it's not for anyone. It's not just for anybody. If you have like a general interest in Ayurveda, I would really prefer an email, and I can help to, you know, probably refer you out to somebody else that would help you with a general interest in Ayurveda. My specific offering is for people that are suffering from anxiety and digestive issues, autoimmune issues, skin disorders, and that want to get better and are ready to get better. So please, you know, hold space for that. And if you're somebody else, send me an email and I can refer you to somebody. I even have people at my local center at Hamza that I could probably send you to too. So it's not like it's, you know, the end of the road, but the calls, the consultation calls are for people that have anxiety and digestive issues. So please appreciate that. So the way that you would book a consultation call with me is I'm at meetme.so / and I'll be sending out a follow-up email also. So it's meetme.so / Monica Yearwood. And that takes you to my online scheduling software. You can book a call, an application page, and then we spend about an hour together. And thank you so much for your time today. I hope that this information aids you on your path and that you have a beautiful day today. So thank you so much.